Hey everyone! So today I'd like to go over why it's important not to tie your self-worth and revolve your entire life around having a job, especially if you work for someone else and don't actually own the company. So I've worked for a couple of years now in about half a dozen different companies, and one thing that I've noticed is that there's always a handful of people across different ages who didn't really have any other hobbies aside from eating out, drinking and partying, and traveling. There's nothing wrong with any of these three activities, but what I found is that they are typically a symptom of a person tying their self-esteem and revolving their entire life around having a job. This is a problem that has different effects across different age groups. In the past, it used to be really an older people problem because many would work for the same company and have the same job for decades of their life, and then they would suddenly stop when they retire and subsequently go nuts because they have no idea what to do with their life anymore. Their brain kind of deteriorates because it used to be all about work, doing things for work, and now that they don't really have a job anymore, they have no idea what to do with themselves. This used to be a problem that my mom worried about as my dad was approaching his retirement age, because he's one of those people who is basically a workaholic. Like, he's worked for the same company for 30, 40 years. He frequently worked late, started early, and he didn't really have a hobby outside of playing golf every weekend. Tying your self-worth and revolving your life around having a job is something that's affecting more and more younger people today, because nowadays promotions and raises are harder to come by, so a lot of people opt for jumping to different companies every couple of years. And this increases the likelihood that there will come a point way before retirement where you would not have a job, either by choice or by force. You could leave a job on your own because you're just sick of it and wanted to explore life. You could be leaving that job because there's too much pressure and it's causing burnout. Or very commonly these days, you could simply be laid off from that job and there's nothing you could have done about that. There was this younger guy whom my dad used to work with, whom I also met and knew at the time, who passed away a couple of years ago in his late 30s, a little over a year after he got laid off at his job. The official story was that it was a combination of him being really involved and passionate about this lawsuit that he had filed against that company for unfair dismissal, some form of substance abuse, as well as some form of existing depression that he had had. The unofficial story was that he had taken his own life because he was a really career-driven guy. His job basically was his life. He had climbed to a pretty high level as a 30-something-year-old at the time. And after a year of being unable to find a new job and being unemployed, he couldn't take it anymore. He was one of those career ladder climbers, so he had built quite a resume for himself and was getting paid really well. So it definitely wasn't something to do with the financial part of it. But then financials aren't everything in life, right? I think there's an aspect of tying your self-worth to having a job that really is more devastating if you're a male, because as a guy, you're kind of expected to be that breadwinner who climbs that career ladder, who makes a name for yourself and gets all those promotions and holds that job to bring back money to put food on the table for the family. So when you lose that ability to do that, it's really a hard blow if you had invested so much of your life to be centered around having a job. And I think that's pretty sad because life isn't all about that. Another problem with overinvesting time, energy, emotions, and effort into your job is by the end of the day, you really don't have anything to show for it aside from whatever salary you might have been paid and hopefully saved up. One really big aspect about working as a white-collar office employee is that a lot of the things in the environment around you at work are fake. Your company doesn't really appreciate you as an employee, no matter how much they tell you they do. You're just a replaceable cog to them. One day you're working there, and one day someone decides that a number in the balance sheet doesn't add up, and they want to reduce that number, and that number is you. After my mom quit her really toxic office job some 20 years ago, a lot of people whom she used to talk to in the company never talked to her again. That's when she kind of realized that the friendships weren't what they seemed, and the sooner a person realizes this, the better. There was also this woman whom I worked with in a previous office job named Annie, who made this mistake of holding her farewell party after she had left the building. So a lot of people have their farewell gatherings or dinners with their co-workers on the last day that they would work that job. Annie already had a vacation planned for her last few days at the job, so she wouldn't actually spend her last day at the office. She would just take her remaining days off. And she thought to have this farewell party after she had returned from her vacation, but before she started at her new job. Now, she had been at this company of about 250 people for about 5 years, so she was one of the earlier employees. And what usually happened at this company is that whenever someone has a farewell, something like 20 to 50 people would show up at the farewell party, which would normally be at a bar or a restaurant. But in Annie's case, only 7 people showed up. And one of those people, that was me, didn't even work for that company anymore. In fact, I wasn't even invited, but I had heard from some folks who were still at the company that some people that I wanted to see would be at this farewell. So I kind of got invited to gate crash. But one of the interesting things that happened at this farewell was that Annie was kind of surprised that so few people showed up at her farewell party. I mean, that's the whole mistake, right? Assuming that everyone who's friendly with you at the office is automatically your friend. A lot of people at work pretend to be friendly with you, not because they really want to, but because they want something out of you. The moment you have nothing else to offer them, they're gone. Take my mom, for example. The minute she became a housewife, nobody really wanted to talk to her anymore, because which kind of housewife is going to give them an opening into a new job? You obviously can't help them with their work anymore now that you're no longer with the company. So what's the point in even talking to you? That's how a lot of people think, and that's how it really is. They stop talking to you, they stop being friendly with you, and it's like you don't exist anymore. Like 2 weeks after I was let go from my job a couple of years ago, I went to a farewell party of someone else who, just to be clear, wasn't let go, because otherwise they wouldn't have the chance to even organize and send out those invitations within the company for that farewell party to happen. But over there, I talked to a few people whom I used to work with, and there were a couple of folks who had asked me how I was doing, what I had been doing, and if I had found a new job. A number of those people were really turned off by the fact that I was living my own life at the time. I didn't have a new job lined up, but that was mostly because I had been fired 2 weeks ago. And it was December. So I had a couple of interviews that I had been doing, but businesses tend to close in December for the holidays. And I would get a job offer the next month that I would later sign. But at the time, I just told them I was catching up with life. You know, there were a lot of errands at home, personal projects that I wanted to do, TV shows I wanted to watch, all of which I didn't really have time for while I was working at this job, because many parts of that job itself were really stressful. However, it seemed kind of clear to me that the minute those folks heard that I didn't have a new job, they automatically assumed that I wouldn't be of any use to them anymore. So it was quite clear that some of these people started edging away the moment I talked about what I was doing that was unrelated to joining a new company. And you know what? I was perfectly fine with all of that. If those people didn't want to talk to me anymore just because I didn't have a new job lined up, that's fine by me. I wouldn't want to be talking to these kinds of insincere people anyway. I mean, I've personally never tied my self-worth around having a job or revolving my whole life around the job that I worked as an employee, and I think that's done wonders. There's so many problems with overinvesting yourself, your time, your energy, your emotions into a job and the people that you work with, that don't really manifest themselves until after you've left a job, either by choice or because you were fired or let go. And it's really dangerous because you don't really find out until it's too late. Having put everything into this world and then suddenly realizing that it wasn't what it seemed can be really detrimental to your mental health. My advice is to start picking up some real hobbies, strengthening your friendships and creating new ones with people from outside of work. Really start divesting your life from your job. There's so much to life that not having a job isn't the end of the world. That's it for today, and I hope you learned something.